science fact, from conspiracy theory to conspiracy reality, from the bicameral fissure at the center of your brain to the living, pulsing heart of our universe. Yes, your frequency is ascending. Revolution-radio.com, revolutiontalkradio.com, revolutionradio.tv, freedomslips.com, and revolutionradio.rocks. And pleased as punch to present Strange Universe Radio, with your host, the man so nice they named him thrice, the man whose hands feel like rich Corinthian leather, the most interesting man in the universe with the world's most interesting friends. It is I, the Sean. And of course, a tribute to Maurice Chevalier, because we are transmitting from Montreal, Quebec, a place with millions of clones that look like JP.
They are all my cousins. They all have the worst accent in the world.
Yes, the worst French accent ever. Ever, because they talk like this. Oh, they're very manly lot here. So, once again, I am transmitting from the International Institute of Health and Spiritual Sciences Expo up here in Montreal. And I'm about ready to, I can do maybe half a show today because I have a talk at 7:30 Eastern time here. So I have to go downstairs, and it's like being one of the Beatles. Just get completely mobbed by thousands of people here. There's a huge festival actually happening. I'm looking down. I'm on the 8th floor of the Hyatt, and I'm looking down at this massive street festival. There's a huge stage at the end of the street, which is they do apparently fashion shows. Everything up and down for this festival is some kind of – it's a clothing festival, really. They're very much into clothes here in Montreal. And I've seen some of the models actually wandering about the mall. I saw one girl who was just – oh, my goodness. She looked like an alien from another planet. I could have put my thumb and middle finger around her thigh and did, and I'm just out of jail now. So, but they're just
stick people.
I know, they're stick people. They're so young. They're just basically bowling fetuses down a runway. It's fetus bowling. Let's put a costume on this fetus and just roll it down the runway. It's and we have a couple of interesting stories about, if I can actually get to them, because now my Skype is just, now my Safari is all wacky. So hold on, I may have to actually reconnect into my. Well, let me.
All right. Listen, your signal, your Skype is perfect. So don't mess with that. Just stay there. Okay. Just don't move and don't breathe, and just stay exactly where you are. You'll be fine.
All right. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do with this, because it doesn't seem like my Safari is connecting. I'm going to do a bit of sleight of hand and a bit of legerdemain here. So here's what I'm doing on Skype, JP, just because. I'm sending you a couple of these stories where if you can get them and then send them back to me via Skype, I might be able to do this through Skype if my Safari is not operating properly.
Or I could read them for you.
No, there's that. Too, you have a much better voice than I do, but I have to do something.
Girl lived in London.
I have to actually pretend I'm actually producing something here.
Yeah. Well,
hold on. No, it's not. I'm trying to get.
You're trying to get one?
Yes. This is the girl. I think I sent you the one.
The girl with the pictures and yes.
Yes, living. Yes.
Okay, I've got the text.
Because England has become officially invaded by women who look like Daleks and men who wear pajamas in the daytime. So. So there it is. Okay, let me see if I can get this. A 16-year-old lived in a household of terrorist propaganda, including pictures of beheadings, must be removed from her deceitful parents, a judge has ruled. The East London teenager, described as intelligent, educated, and ambitious, is fully radicalized by Islamic State propaganda, the family division of the High Court heard. Now, this is kind of a slippery slope here. On the one hand, they're trying to claim that the parents are deceitful because they believe in Islam, that she must be taken away from her family. How is this really any different than any other wacky, crazy religion, being Orthodox Jewish or Mormon or a Scientologist? I'm not so sure the state has the right to come in and break up a family because the daughter now is propagandized by whatever it is. But Mr. Justice Hayden said the girl, who cannot be named because of her age, has been left suffering psychological and emotional harm from her radicalization akin to that seen in sex abuse cases. Has he read the Bible? Have you, especially the illustrated versions where, I don't know, David chops off the head of Goliath, or Samson lives with Delilah, and I'm not sure if they've read the Bible. You know that David, in order to marry the daughter of Saul, David said part of the way they used to count coup or count their body count in battle is that they would cut off the penises of their enemies. And in this case, not kidding, this is look, when you're raised on Bible stuff, you find stuff to amuse yourself. And Saul said, I want the penises of 100 Philistines. And David went out and chopped off the penises of 200 Philistines. I'm pretty sure the Philistines were dead when he did this, and actually dropped like 2 giant bloody bags of penises in order to marry Saul's daughter. David had 3 wives, by the way. I think the third one was Saul's daughter. So again, she's already tried to travel to Syria to become what they called a jihadi bride, being removed from Turkey, a Turkey-bound flight in December, and then made a ward of the court. Her parents had then appeared to cooperate with police and social workers, but when police searched the family home in June, they found, quote, you should actually read this line because you're English. You should actually read this line here. Are you reading with me?
Hang on a second. Let me just get to the line. Where are we?
When police searched the family,
I don't have to I'll give you my best police accent. Oh, go on.
Okay. In June, they found, quote,
a plethora of electronic devices.
Continue.
Including some belonging to her father, containing Islamic State material and showing that the parents had been deceiving the authorities.
Along with the pictures of beheadings, there was material on bomb making and advice for jihadists on how to conceal their identity. The judge said of the girl, quote,
I can see no way in which her psychological, emotional, and intellectual integrity can be protected by her remaining in this household. The farrago of sophisticated dishonesty of the parents makes this entirely unsustainable.
The judge described the girl as one of a number of, quote,
intelligent young girls, highly motivated academically, who had been captured and seduced into seeing life in Syria as a jihadi bride. It's a somewhat romantic and honorable path for them and their families, it seems.
He read out a list of terrorist-linked material. This is fun. Terrorist-linked material in the search, including devices belonging to the teenager, which contained documents such as 44 ways to support jihad and advice on how to avoid airport security. She had guidance for making weapons and bombs and searched online for software to mask a computer's IP address and the response times of the Metropolitan Police Armed Response Team. The judge said her siblings had ISIS news reports of men getting ready for death, human executions, beheadings, terrorist training, and propaganda videos. The children's parents had devices containing lectures encouraging attacks on non-Muslims, all discovered after the parents had expressed their thanks that their daughter had been prevented from reaching Turkey, the judge added. Now, comparing the case with those involving sex abuse, the judge added, quote,
the violation contemplated here is not of the body, but is of the mind.
And
it is every bit as insidious, and I do not say that lightly, as it involves harm of a similar magnitude.
Yay! And scene. So there you go. That's Sean and JP reading a story about a crazy Muslim girl. Although, once again, a weird slippery slope. Yes, sir.
I am the JP. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, here's a story that I really wanted to get to. Actually, since we did Thank Heaven for Little Girls, there were a couple of girl stories in here. I was trying to get to the one on this idiot, this fat boy who ate a bunch of sandwiches and went out and, I don't know, bought Subway sandwiches for kids trying to molest them or something. Jared Vogel. I'm trying to find that one. And where did that one go? Okay. Girl lived in London with the pictures. Where did it go? Okay. Well, the story I was going to read then, hang on. I've actually there was a couple of interesting stories here. The topless women of Times Square are now facing a clampdown. I'm not sure why we're doing women's stories here, but But yes, welcome to Canada. Now I've had these girls come up to me in Times Square. Now they're topless, mostly naked. They've got they've got NY actually written on their butts, and they're wearing thongs and basically just kind of see-through pasties. And they come up and they said, "You want a picture?" And the girl came up to me and said, "You want a picture?" And I said, "Does your mother know you're doing this? I shouldn't take a picture. I should get you a coat. Get you a coat to cover you up." And New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was weighed in to the debate over the topless women who pose for photos in Times Square, saying they're breaking the law. Really? He said the situation is beginning to remind him of the seedy days of the bad old Times Square. "I believe that such activity is illegal. I believe it's infringing on legitimate businesses. I think it's infringing on the investment that the state and the city have made in the 42nd Street area, and I think it needs to be stopped." All right, I disagree. But Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's a complete freak, said on Tuesday he believes the practice is wrong and the city will tackle it in a very aggressive manner. Seriously? They have guys who dress like Spider-Man, like Woody, like Minions, but it's unclear. They've got the naked cowboy, a guy who runs around in his underpants and plays guitar. It's unclear what measures the city can take since toplessness is legal in New York. And the des nudes can claim the protection of artistic expression afforded by the First Amendment of the Constitution. However, the city bans aggressive begging. The women, who are often covered in little more than body paint and a thong, pose for photos with tourists in exchange for cash. The most immigrant desnudas is what they call them, because they don't really speak English that well, work long days and face being groped by customers while being monitored by male managers who take a cut of their earnings. So they're pimps, basically. Governor Cuomo also said he has concerns about performers dressed as cartoon characters who harass tourists into purchasing photos and occasionally fight one another. Okay. Yeah, I would like to see Spider-Man fight Batman. I think that would be I would pay actually money to see that happen. So if Spider-Man and Batman are out there. All right, let me see if this – but now it's telling me I can't open a page. And I'm getting all this. So there's our – and the one last one, thank Kevin for little girls, is – let me see if all my stuff is disappearing here. I want to thank I want to say hi to all my Canadian buddies. I want to say hi to Kevin Shaw, who's over in Toronto. And the heck did it go? I got another Ashley Madison story. Come on, I had it right here. And maybe that's the one it couldn't open. But it was the story about hey, I know Kevin's listening right now. I should probably have Kevin just send this to me again, because it's the story of how female Viagra almost didn't make it to
female Viagra. How?
Yeah.
How? What? Where?
Female Viagra, or what we call it in the United States is tequila. But
sure, yeah.
Why are you doing your wonderful, powerful Wizard of Oz voice? You've got your Wizard of Oz button tapped here.
Oh, sorry, I've got the reverb on.
Yes, indeed. So here it is. So the female Viagra story is interesting in a lot of different ways. First off, the actual chemical itself with Viagra was actually a heart medication, and they were doing experiments on heart medication of how to actually lower blood pressure and do different things with the blood, apparently. And they stumbled on Viagra. It was one of those complete accidents that then wound up making the pharmaceutical industry billions of dollars. The challenge is, and this is what I've always said, that male sexuality and female sexuality are completely different. And I want to say thank you to is this Brandon Young? Actually, Kevin Shaw. And say hi to Brandon Young out there. How you doing? But it's fascinating to me because male sexuality is based at the base root chakra, in essence. For the men have a singular pole of sexual energy, forgive the pun there, whereas female sexuality is in the back of the head. And I keep telling people that female sexuality is in the brain. Men are more visual, women are obviously more visceral and more emotional. Men look at dirty pictures, women read dirty books. They need the relationship, they need all the stuff that goes with it. Women need a reason to have sex. Men just need a place. So, some bushes, a van, your
anywhere,
parents
really.
out when they're gone. Yes. So the FDA announced its approval of it's even funny. Flibanserin is what it's called. Flibanserin or flibanserin, which is the first drug to treat sexual desire disorder among women, and the drug will be sold with strong warnings about interactions with alcohol and other precautions.
This is who's that guy? That comedian. that with the girls. This is the sort of stuff that would be ideal for him. Who's that?
Comedian with the girls. Well, I don't know. George Burns. George Burns.
The one who just got done. I can't remember his name. He's an American comedian. He's very famous. Oh God! Don't.
Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby.
Cosby. This is what he ordered probably.
Yeah, I would say
because it's like you can't make a woman do this. This is like it's mind control.
Yeah, well, with Cosby, of course, I think now we have. Isn't Cosby the guy who invented the Jello shooter?
Oh.
All right, in 1998, Viagra was approved as the first drug to treat male sexual dysfunction. Today, while men have a total of 26 drugs that help them in that department, which is Viagra, Cialis, there's all kinds of stuff. The thing is, once again, they've spent billions of dollars on getting drugs to help you get an erection and keep an erection. If they just invented a drug to help you give that erection away, which I presume is this drug here, anyway, women struggling in bed are still out of luck in the pill department. Again, I would think expensive dinners, wine, flowers, chocolates, aren't all those, every bar is about altering feminine perceptions, I suppose. Enough beer makes anybody attractive. Beer goggles, the guy that invents beer goggles, there you go. But that changed because following years of controversy, the FDA will announce on whether it will approve the first libido-boosting drug for women suffering from a condition called hypoactive sexual desire disorder. Hypoactive? Okay. Which can affect 1 in 10 women. Now, something about that. Women who have HSDD do not have sexual fantasies or desire sexual activity. We call these Republicans. No, and suffer psychologically for it. Their symptoms also cannot be explained by other obvious conditions like depression or drug addiction. So if it's approved, as an FDA advisory committee recommended in June, it would be a milestone for a relatively small startup company that bet on developing the drug in 2011. Now, whether the desire-enhancing pill would be a milestone for women is much more questionable. I guess the idea is that is it just like Quaaludes? Is it Vicodin? Is it just something that makes you feel really good? Because among both feminists and women's health experts, the drug still has many critics as it has supporters. So I guess the feminists would say, how dare you invent a pill that gets a woman in the mood for sex? But anyway, I'll have one more roofie teeny, please. I'll have a
roofie chino. You can even get this. All right.
Well, yeah, I'll have a Sprite soda. My date will have a roofie teeny, please. So
this is men have been doing this for centuries. Trying to get women interested. This alcohol.
Yeah.
Start there.
Well, supposedly isn't the best pickup line, excuse me, does this handkerchief, well, God, I blew the joke. Never mind.
You won't get it tonight. Anyway, but, so there you are. Do you want something sexy on the next line?
No, I think we have all that French music to play, but the drug called, once again, it works by rebalancing the levels of 3 neurotransmitters in the brain. It was first developed as an antidepressant for both sexes, but that didn't pan out in testing. And its developer, the large drug maker Boehringer Ingelheim, instead pursued one of its side effects, which is a boost in sexual desire instead. However, by 2010, the pink pill hit a wall when the FDA declined to approve it. The agency said more work was needed to characterize safety and show it was effective enough to justify its side effects, which, by the way, included low blood pressure, fainting, nausea, and fatigue, which describes my sex life almost exactly. Rather than keep going, the German pharmaceutical company canceled the project outright. But Boehringer Ingelheim,
really,
yes, Boehringer Ingelheim. And by the way, this pill was approved this week. And so the story is a little old. I've been waiting to tell the story, but it's a bit old. But they were not the first drug maker to bow out of the potentially lucrative quest for a female libido drug. Others, including Viagra's maker Pfizer, Procter & Gamble, and Biosante Pharmaceuticals, have tried and failed. They all quickly learned that when it comes to sexual dysfunction, a pharmaceutical fix was much easier in a man than in a woman. Complex creatures that you are. Viagra and other drugs, like it, are taken before sex and increase physical blood flow to Mr. Happy in the 26 FDA-approved male impotence treatments, many are variations of the same one, the so-called female Viagra isn't anything similar to it at all, which just again proves my point that everything that turns men on turns women off, and everything that turns women on turns men off. So, hot tubs, drugs, long romantic movies, the movie Ghost, it just, make men completely limp and turn women on. But it must be taken every day. And it messes with complicated systems of brain chemistry, of course, and the very premise that women should turn to a drug to alter their desire, which is naturally prone to fluctuate in life, has drawn the ire of some very angry, large women. But when flibanserin was sidelined, Cindy Whitehead, her name actually, together with her husband Bob Whitehead, were leading a pharmaceutical company. All right, I'm back. I'm in Montreal, obviously, a little piece of Paris of France in North America, where the women look you directly in the eye before they spit in your face. It's great stuff here. So I want to say thank you to actually Brandon Young is telling me to go to a place called Ye Old Montreal, I think it is. So he's apparently a Quebecer from way back. So yes, he says go to, where do you say? Here it is. Yes, he says clothes are cheap and nice. It's a fashion fest out there. Yes, they look in the old Montreal. So there you go. Uses a slingshot with one rock. Think of the geometry. Okay, epic Bible. All right, so there we go. So yes, what am I doing up in Montreal? Thank you, Nighthawk. I'm engaging in the culture. I travel around the country and I speak at conferences. That's what I do. They tear my clothes. They want pieces of my hair. It's like being Elvis. It's crazy. So yes, so I'm speaking at the International Institute of Health and Spiritual Sciences. It is their 40th year. If you want to come down, I'm speaking tonight at 7:30, and I'm trying to get the show in before that, and trying to do as much of the program as I can, and then we'll toss a couple of stories off to JP, and he'll take it for about the last half hour or so. So yes, people tell me to visit the Museum of French Military Victories. Yes, it's a hall.
It's a very small place.
Yeah, it's a hall full of white flags. I always think it's funny, and only JP will probably understand this, but the word sortie actually is French, not only for battle, but for exit. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know I knew it was the word for exit. I didn't know the word for battle though. Oh yeah.
You know what a sortie is? A sortie is when people fight. You fought a sortie against the Vietnamese or whatever. But in French, it's also the same word as run away or get the hell out of here. So I've always thought that was really funny when I see the word sortie because, I don't know, it's just a lingual joke in my mind. Now, America's next president. This is a very important story. This is a story that you need to listen to. We're goofing around with female Viagra and of course, Jared, the subway guy, is now pleading to, I don't know, child pornography or having some or something. So it's crazy. And by the way, the pink pill was approved this week. So congratulations. And, it's a very strange story, the female Viagra story, because it just shows, in my opinion, I've been talking about this for years as far as, the shocker points and female sexuality. Female sexuality is about mood. It's all about the energy is in the back of their head, and it all has to be brought down through the erogenous zones of the neck and the breasts and the belly, and all the way down into the base root chakra. It's more of a mood. It's more of a like I said, it's all about the romance. And as I said, the difference between men and women, where women need a reason to have sex with you, and men just need a place. And the difference also is that you could be 50 years old and have worked your entire life to achieve some amount of fame and fortune, and the President of the United States standing in a room will get as much attention as a super hot 19 or 20-year-old penthouse Playboy model who comes in the other side. As I would suggest the President of the United States, and not that they're anything spectacular, but let's say the Kardashians walk in on the other side, and they'll get just as much attention. Why? For doing what? Exactly. For having large centaur-like asses, and I don't know, marrying black guys, whatever. But and again, tequila is 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila floor. And I never understood the Lord of the Rings about having a ring that makes you invisible when 3 tequilas work for me just fine. But anyway, so just the last part of that is the company's fundamental position is that the data is all in and there's a benefit and there's side effects and the decision should be left to women. There's a plan to include information on the bottle that if the drug isn't working within 8 weeks, it takes you 8 weeks to take a pill that makes you have sex. That's about right. If you're married, that's about right. It's probably not right for the patient. As for its relatively modest effect, women who have HSDD aren't generally looking to put their sex drive into hyper mode. They'd much rather complain and bitch and moan. It's much more fun for them. But a small improvement in their sex drive is often meaningful. If the FDA does approve the drug, which they did, it's going to be the beginning of a more logical conversation about sex, like depression. Sexual dysfunction will be a problem for which both therapy and pills are available. As for the business potential, if the FDA gives its approval, then they have a specialty sales force, about 200 that are ready to start now pushing the drug. So anyway, you can sign up. There's Fast Companies Innovation Festival and all that. Okay, so this is the story that's the most important outside of everything else and all the fooling around. And by the way, those are the Singing Nuns. I'm not sure that hit was from 1966. That poor lady actually was a nun, sang that song, became internationally famous, played the guitar all over the world, became a lesbian, and killed herself. So I'm very sorry about her tragic story. But when you do a song that's that weird, come on, we all had to sing it in Christian school. But this is the story that should concern every single one of you. This is a strange universe kind of story that you just have to soak in. And please be reminded that I have personal experience with this particular story because America's next president could be eased into office not just by TV ads or speeches, but by a series of secret decisions by Google. And no one, apparently except for me and maybe a few other obscure researchers, would know how this was accomplished. So research directed in recent years suggests that Google Incorporated and Facebook, I might add, have amassed far more power to control elections. Indeed, to control a wide variety of opinions and beliefs that any company in history has ever had. No one in the history of mankind on this planet has had this kind of power over this many people. If you remember, it turns out that Facebook, working with the CIA, conducted a mass mind control experiment where they took a section of their people and in one group, they fed them all positive information and another group fed them negative information. And it turned out it altered their day, if you will, for people that live in the machine world. So Google's search algorithm can now easily shift the voting preferences of undecided voters by 20% or more. Now, this is just changing the opinion. The people that probably really control the elections are Diebold, who control the voting machines, and probably the Rand Corporation as well, who have now bought into Diebold. I think the only reason that Obama probably won the election against Romney is that his ability to control the voting machines, I think, vaporized. There was a guy named Mitch Connell, not Mitch McConnell, but there was a man named Mitch Connell who had actually rigged most of the voting machines in the past elections, and he was on his way to testify to Congress, and he was flying his plane in Washington, D.C., and it fell out of the sky and crashed into a mountain. So no more Mitch Connell. But he was the guy that was admitting to rigging all the voting machines, which I'm not sure is good or bad because probably the rigging of the voting machines would probably give, Republicans more victories as opposed to places like Philadelphia where entire districts they did not have a single vote for Mitt Romney, not one. That gives you an idea about Philadelphia where they killed Hitchbot. They killed Hitchbot, I tell you. But up to 80% in some demographic groups with virtually no one knowing that they are being manipulated, according to experiments conducted recently with Ronald E. Robertson and Tyler Durden. And Tyler Durden wrote an article on this, How Could Google Rig the 2016 Election? So given the many elections are won and lost now by very small margins, remember they want parity in these elections. They want to make it look really close. So because they'd get caught if so many people overwhelmingly were for one candidate and suddenly it got turned, that would probably make them squeal. But this gives Google the power right now, right at this moment, to flip upwards of 25% of the national elections worldwide. Even though we're supposedly in the most transparent time in history, And yet this is the kind of control. Remember, they're altering perception. They're altering opinion. And in the United States, half of our presidential elections have been won by margins of 7.6%. And the 2012 election was won by a margin of only, I mean, if you think it's a landslide, Obama only won the election by 3.9% of the people, which is well within Google's control. Let me also point out that it was George W. Bush in 2004. He was the first president to win the election with an actual majority since his father in 1988. Actually, if you look at it this way, 1988 was George Poppy Bush. And they call him Poppy because of his dealings in heroin, not because he's everyone's dad. Poppy Bush in 1988 wins the popular vote by, I think, 52%, which was considered a landslide. However, in 94, he then loses. I predicted, and it's in print in my book weeks before it happened, that Ross Perot would re-enter the election. It's in my book, The Millennium Factor, which was September 17th of, I think, 1992. And in that book, I predicted that Ross Perot would re-enter the race. And that he would get 22% of the vote, and that it would grease. And now I threw this out there because I figured that if you didn't have a majority of the vote, if you know this or not, if you don't have a majority in the electoral college where it's split, the election then goes directly, because the voting doesn't count. It's all the electoral college. If the electoral college is split and there's no clear majority in the electoral college, then the vote actually goes to the Congress, and then the Congress has to then pick the president. And this has happened, I think, about 3 times in American history. It happened when Harrison, I think it was the 1880s, where Harrison made a deal with the Southern Democrats at that time that if you throw the election my way, I'll get in and I'll pass the Posse Comitatus Act to finally withdraw federal troops from the South after many years after the Civil War. So if you actually progress forward, Bill Clinton only won the election in 1992. He won the election with only 42% of the vote at that time. Then in 96, he also did not get a majority. He got 46% of the vote in 96. Then in 2000, George Bush lost. He lost the popular election. And then, of course, it goes to Florida, where his brother was controlling everything, and then Jeb flips it around, and the Supreme Court makes a decision. The Supreme Court decides, we're going to decide that you can't recount the votes, but this ruling cannot be used as precedent, can never be used again. You can't do anything else with it other than to make George Bush president of the United States. So they absconded with the process completely to make sure that they handed the whole deal to George Bush, because they knew that he was going to be the one that was going to be the puppet, that was going to be controlled, that was going to get us into Iraq and Iran, and that he would ride herd on 9/11 and all the stuff they had planned. They needed George W. Bush for. And then he wins with an overwhelming majority, predicted by me, by the way, in 2004. I said that Bush was going to win with a landslide, and he was also one of the first midterm, or should I say, a president in the middle of his 8-year term, first midterm president to actually pick up votes in the Senate and in the House. How he did that and run again. It's like the boyfriend that cheated on you. You found out who it was. He screwed your sister and gave you herpes, but you give him another chance. That's George W. Bush in 2004. And then, of course, Obama running against McCain in 2008. He does get a majority of the vote. But the adjustments that they make this is Google again. The adjustments that they make increasingly influence our thinking, including our voting preferences. So in the research in what they call search engine manipulation effect, or SEMI, turns out to be one of the largest behavioral effects ever discovered. So there's a comprehensive new study just published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and it includes the results of 5 experiments conducted with more than 4,500 participants in 2 countries. And because SEMI is virtually invisible as a form of social influence, because the effect is so large, and because there are currently no specific regulations anywhere, not anywhere, in the world that could prevent Google from using and abusing this technique. I believe that SEMI is a serious threat to the democratic system of government. Now, according to Google Trends, Donald Trump is currently trouncing all the other candidates in search activity in 47 out of 50 states. If you look at the current data now, if the election were held today, Donald Trump would be the president of the United States by not just a small margin, by a bunch, by a whole bunch. So could this activity push him higher in search rankings, and could higher rankings in turn bring him more support? Most definitely, depending that is on how Google employees choose to adjust the numeric weightings in the search algorithms. Google acknowledges adjusting the algorithm 600 times a year, but the process is completely secret. It's not controlled by a government. It's not controlled by a state. So what effect Trump's success will have on how he shows up in Google searches is completely out of his hands. What's going to be the first thing when you do a Google search on Donald Trump? Is it going to be his 4 bankruptcies? Is it going to be Donald Trump calls Rosie O'Donnell a big fat pig and all women and men agree with him? Donald Trump declares, I don't know, vagina has 10,000 calories a lick. Who knows? But research leaves little doubt about whether Google has the ability to control voters. In laboratory and online experiments conducted in the United States, they were able to boost the proportion of people who favored any candidate by between 37 and 63% after just one search session. And the impact of viewing biased rankings repeatedly over a period of weeks or months would be, and they've got, a year, over a year, 16, 18 months to do this, but it would be much larger. So in the basic experiment, participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 groups in which search rankings favored either candidate A, candidate B, or nobody, neither candidate. Participants were given brief descriptions of each candidate, and then they were asked how much they liked and trusted each candidate and whom they would vote for. And then they were allowed up to 15 minutes to conduct online research on the candidates using a Google search engine. And the researchers created one called Cadoodle, kind of a fake search engine. And each group had access to the same 30 search results, all real search results linking to real web pages from a past election. Only the ordering of the results differed in the 3 groups. People would click freely on any result or shift between any of 5 different results, just as one can on Google search engine. And of course, most people just check the first one. If you're off the one page, nobody goes usually beyond the first page. I would say 90% of people will look at the first page. When the participants in this study were done searching, they asked them those questions again, and voila, on all measures, opinions shifted in the direction of the candidate who was favored in the rankings. Trust, liking, and voting preference all shifted predictably. More alarmingly, researchers also demonstrated this shift with real voters during an actual electoral campaign in an experiment conducted with more than 2,000 eligible undecided voters throughout India during the 2014 Lok Sabha election there. By the way, India is the largest democracy on earth with a parliamentary system. It takes them 3 months to conduct an election with the almost 4 million people that live in India. But they're it's the largest democratic election in history with 800 million. 800 million. They have more eligible voters in their country. Twice as many as we have people. Over twice as many. And of the 800 million eligible voters, most of them are too busy meditating or, floating in the air or, climbing up a rope or charming snakes or whatever they do. But 480 million people actually voted, ultimately cast votes in the Indian election. So even here, with real voters who were highly familiar with the candidates and who were being bombarded with campaign rhetoric every day, they showed that search rankings boosted the proportion of people favoring any candidate by more than 20%. More than 60% in some demographic groups. And we're talking about a country that really doesn't have a lot of access to computers. But given how powerful this effect is, it's possible that Google decided the winner of the election of India. And you can absolutely bet that the United States had something to do with that. Because India was talking about moving towards China. India had actually thrown out the U.S. Navy And, of course, a few days later was the Sumatran tsunami, in which the U.S. Navy was invited back in with 30,000 troops and a bunch more stuff where they said, okay, Hindus, you want to mess with us now? No, we would very much like your help. Please send back all your warships and all your troops and all your help to us. We will not mess with the United States anymore because you don't play fair. So Google's own daily data on election-related search activity, which was removed from the internet, but not before various colleagues and researchers downloaded the pages, showed that Narendra Modi, the ultimate winner, outscored his rivals in search activity by more than 25% for 61 consecutive days before the final votes were cast, absolutely manipulating that election. That high volume of search activity could easily have been generated by higher search rankings for Modi. And Google's official comment on semi-research is always the same. Quote, providing relevant answers has been the cornerstone of Google's approach to search from the very beginning. It would undermine the people's trust in our results and company if we were to change course. Could any comment by any company be more meaningless than that one? How does providing, quote, relevant answers, unquote, to election-related questions rule out the possibility of favoring one candidate over another in search rankings? Google's statement seems far short of a blanket denial that it ever puts its finger on the scales. So there's three credible scenarios under which Google could easily be flipping elections worldwide as you hear this. First, there's a Western Union scenario. Google's executives decide which candidate is best for us and for the company, of course, and they fiddle with the search rankings accordingly. There is precedent in the United States for this kind of backroom king-making. Rutherford B. Hayes, the 19th president of the United States, was put into office in part because of strong support by Western Union. Remember Western Union? They've got a section in the grocery store that's never open, and you can never send anything because the manager doesn't want to come over with the key. But in the late 1800s, Western Union had a complete monopoly, a total monopoly on communications in America. Remember Strange Universe Radio? Thank you. I'm in French Quebec in Montreal. That was Pepe Le Pew. And thank you, a new promo from JP. Thank you, JP, for that. That was
that's good, man.
Thank you. It is good. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It was very nice. All right, look, I'm gonna stay through this story. I just have to, in order to go do my talk, I just have to be downstairs at 7:30, and they're probably all running late. So it's fine. Actually, we knock off. It takes me 5 minutes just to run downstairs and wrap up my computer. But as I said, this story it's very important, and I have some personal aspects to this as well, as to the bent of Google, if you will. I'm still really stunned at the fact that you have, on the one hand, Donald Trump, who is up 28 to 30% in the polls over, he's at 28, 30% as opposed to Jeb Bush, who's barely scraping 12, versus Hillary Clinton, who can't even get people to come to her rallies. I mean, if she gets 1,000 people, she's lucky. And Hillary Clinton is being propped up. Nobody likes her, for God's sakes. They just don't like her. And she's being completely propped up by CNN, by MSNBC, by Fox in some instances, even though they're attacking her on a fairly daily basis. Deservedly so, I might add. But when you get Bernie Sanders, Bernie, how's it going, Bernie? How's it going, Bernie Sanders, who once again always looks like his hair looks like his penis is constantly stuck in an electric socket. And he's got 25,000 people selling out stadiums to come hear his socialist, communistic crap. I mean, Brezhnev said, Nikita Khrushchev was the one that said, we won't fire a shot. Communism will conquer America, and we don't have to do a thing. I'm paraphrasing, of course, what Khrushchev said. But here's how I see it. Bernie Sanders is telling you he's a socialist. Bernie Sanders is telling you he's going to take away your stuff. He's going to take away your property. He's going to do all this for the common good. And there are people cheering this, for God's sakes, in America. I would think 20 years ago we would have rounded this guy up and put him in a bin or something as being just a full-on communist, and no one would take him seriously. But he's challenging Hillary Clinton. He's ahead of Hillary Clinton in the polls in some aspects. certainly in places like New Hampshire. But if you have candidates on the one hand, you have a completely socialist communist candidate on the other, and you have a completely capitalistic candidate on the other side. On the one hand, you have a guy. Tell me who you'd vote for in a blind taste test. On the one hand, you have a guy that says, "We're going to take your stuff. We're going to take your stuff. We're going to give your stuff to other people. We're going to take it from the people that earned it and give it to the people that don't. And I'm going to put a government together that's going to be all about that." Because if you look at the federal government, it takes 5% of the budget for the entire federal government to run the federal government. Remember, the federal government is, in essence, 600 people. You've got the Congress, you've got the Senate, you got the Supreme Court, you got the executive. That's elected officials and whatever else. But it takes 5%, we're talking about 5% to pay everybody, to run the army, to run the executive, the legislative, the judicial, the whole thing. It takes 5%. And of the budget of the United States government, let's say between 45 and 50% of that, let's call it 45% just to make it even. 45% of the budget goes towards, quote, defense, which is burned through by the Pentagon. If you want to know where these trillions upon trillions and trillions of dollars are going, whether or not they're going to build moon bases or tunnels underneath the world or going directly to our fascist overlords in ice caves who control us with their UFOs from Antarctica, all the Nazis down there, who knows? But 45% goes to defense. The budget of the Pentagon is more per year than the budgets of all 50 state governments combined. More. And 5% of that goes to pay the federal government. The other 50% of all these federal agencies and all this stuff, of HUD and EPA and all these other, you can't even name all the alphabets, goes from the government taking money away from one group of people that earned it and giving it to another group of people that didn't. So here's Bernie Sanders on the one hand. Bernie Sanders tells you, I'm going to take your stuff. I'm going to take more of your stuff. I don't believe in private property, and I'm going to give everything to a bunch of people that didn't earn it. Once again, if wishes were horses, then beggars would ride. Frederick Bastiat wrote a book called The Law. And he said when you empower beggars to vote themselves stuff, there's always going to be more beggars than people with stuff. And they're going to vote themselves more stuff. And on the other hand, you have Donald Trump as a capitalist who is telling you, not only am I going to make you more money, but I'm going to let you keep what you make. And I'm going to fix the country, and I'm going to make sure that business gets fixed. I'm going to make more people have jobs. I'm going to stop the fleeing from the United States by making the federal government money like it used to make money by establishing tariffs for anybody who wants to leave this country. 35% if you want to put your money where your mouth is. You want to go to Mexico with a factory? Fine. Every part, every product, everything you've got coming into this country is 35%, which will make it even. Who are you going to vote for? So just in that, and one other thing too, how did Bernie Sanders become a senator? How? He's an independent from Vermont, for God's sakes. Therefore, how does he put his hand on the Constitution and swear to uphold it when his core belief system is to violate the very basis of what made this a country, which is basically the sovereign right to keep and own property? Because only the Queen had the right to own property and guns. And those are the two things that they let us, for the first time in 5,000 years, they let individuals be sovereign, we the people, if you will, and own property and guns. So, again, and then Hillary is Bernie Sanders supposed to make Hillary look, mildly less, just instead of just blatantly red? Is he supposed to make Hillary look kind of pink? Make her look like she's someone in the middle, even though all she says is, I'm going to continue every policy of Obama. Immigrants? Yeah, bring more. Government spending? Hell, bring it on. Please remember that the federal government, Orthodox Jew Jacob Lew, Secretary of the Treasury, he stopped the interest on the national debt back in March. And he now keeps the debt just to the point where he renews this every month, just to the point where it's just $25 million underneath the federal spending limit in order to keep the government going, in order to make sure that the government doesn't shut down every 30 days. For them, they would have to raise the debt ceiling every 30 days. So it just stopped. The debt stopped growing, and I don't know what it is now. It's 18. I read the number. It was like 18.166 or something like that. But they've kept it down because by 2016, when the election rolls around, they didn't want the government and the Republicans and the Democrats, everybody else, because it's everybody's fault. They didn't want them to be faced with a $20+ trillion dollar deficit. So now, and let me finish this Google story before I get out of here. And I said, thank you, JP, for taking over the show. If you got some stuff you want to read, or I'll send you some things or whatever. But we were talking about Rutherford B. Hayes and the Western Union scandal, if you will. They controlled everything before the election of 1876. The company did its best to assure that only positive news stories about Hayes appeared in the newspapers nationwide. This is propaganda. This is politics. So it shared all the telegrams sent by his opponent's campaign staff with Hayes's staff. And perhaps the most effective way to wield political influence in today's high-tech world is to donate money to a candidate and then to use technology to make sure that candidate, he or she, wins. The technology is going to guarantee the win, and the donation guarantees allegiance, which Google has certainly tapped in recent years with the Obama administration. They're all bought and sold for by Google. One thing you can say about Trump is Trump gets up there and says, I'm not a puppet. I got plenty of money. I got $8+ billion. Nobody's going to buy me. You look at every single other one of the candidates, especially Jeb or Hillary. Hillary's got money from the Chinese and foreign contributions. And by the way, the Clintons and the Bushes, why nobody has actually pointed this out to Jeb Bush, why nobody has said it during the debates, and I hope somebody does, just type in bushclinton.org or Bush Clinton. They're joined at the hip. They're Siamese twins. They're good buddies. I have a photograph. I'll put it up on my website when I get home if I can find it. But it's a photograph of Bill Clinton, George Bush Sr., and George Wallace all at a picnic in Alabama together in 1983. That's how far back this goes. Bill Clinton was told, you're on the short list to be president of the United States, buddy, but he started shrinking the laundry because they were running all the cocaine money, running all the cocaine through Mena, Arkansas. Just ask Barry Seal. So he was riding sheepdog on all the coke money. And what made George Bush Sr. the golden boy of the New World Order is he figured out how to get drugs into the United States because he would send an oil tanker out to a rig. The drugs were being brought into the oil tanker. The drugs and the cocaine and everything else was being then put inside the oil drum, surrounded by oil so the dogs couldn't sniff it. Then you put it on a big tanker. Then you move it in or fly it, as the case may be. And suddenly, when George Bush became head of the war on drugs, well, guess what? Drugs not only won the war, but the street price of cocaine in the 1980s dropped to pennies on the dollar. Thanks to George Bush figuring out how to get it all in the country cheap and easy, because nobody was actually looking into the fact because they weren't searching the oil tankers that were coming from the platforms. So now you've got coke everywhere, and now you've got Bill Clinton riding sheepdog on this. And the only thing that messed up Bill Clinton is Clinton was greedy. He was shrinking their laundry. And they sent thugs down there to threaten Clinton. You threatening me? Yeah, we are. You're on the short list for president of the United States. This is Barry Seal, mind you. Short list to be president of the United States. Stop messing with us. Stop stealing our money. Now, given Google's massively strong ties to Democrats, there's a reason to suspect that if Google or its employees intervene to favor their candidates, then it's going to be to adjust the search algorithm to favor Hillary Clinton. In 2012, Google and its top executives donated more than $800,000 to Obama, but only $37,000 to Romney. And at least 6 top tech officials in the Obama administration, including Megan Smith, the country's chief technology officer, are former Google employees. And according to a recent report by the Wall Street Journal, since Obama took office, Google representatives have visited the White House 10 times as frequently as representatives from comparable companies once a week on average. They are there kissing Obama's entire golden fried chicken colored ass. And Hillary Clinton clearly has Google's support and is well aware of Google's value in the elections. In April of this year, she hinted that a top Google executive named Stephanie Hannon is going to serve as her chief technology officer. Well, I don't have any reason to suspect that Hannon would use her old connections to aid her candidate, but the fact is that she or any other individual with sufficient clout at Google now has the power to decide elections, threatens to undermine the legitimacy of our electoral system, particularly in close elections, which is what they want. They want a close election so you can't see the magician putting the rabbit in the hat. This is, in any case, the most implausible scenario. What company would risk the public outrage and corporate punishment that would follow from being caught manipulating an election? Second, there is the Marius Milner scenario. A rogue employee at Google who has sufficient password authority or hacking skills makes a few tweaks in the rankings, perhaps after receiving a text message from some old friend who now works on a campaign. And the deed is done. In 2010, when Google got caught sweeping up personal information from unprotected Wi-Fi networks, you know those cars that drive all around that say Google Maps on them, taking pictures of your front door and your driveway and going all over the place? Well, guess what? They're also sucking up Wi-Fi information too. They were downloading all your stuff with a Wi-Fi connection. This was happening in more than 30 countries using their street view vehicles. I've seen them. I saw them in Mexico. I saw them in the Yucatan. I saw them here in Canada. I flip them off every time I see them, hoping maybe my middle finger will be featured somewhere on Google Earth. And the entire operation was blamed on one Google employee, software engineer Marius Milner. So they fire him, right? Nope. Nope. Marius Milner's still there. And on LinkedIn, he's currently identifies his profession. On LinkedIn, he says, my profession is, quote, hacker. Hacker.
Really?
Yep. And if somehow you have gotten the impression that at least a few of Google's 37,000 employees are every bit as smart as Milner and possess a certain mischievousness, if you will, well, you're probably right, which is why the rogue employee scenario is not as far-fetched as it might seem. And third and last, and this is the scariest possibility here, there is what's called the algorithm scenario. Under this scenario, all of Google's employees are innocent little lambs, white as snow, bathed by the blood of Christ, but the software is evil. There's a demon in the software. And Google's search algorithm is now pushing one candidate to the top of the rankings because of what the company coyly dismisses as organic search activity. Oh, it's organic search activity by the users. It's harmless, you see, because it's all natural. It's an act of God. It's all nature. It's the ocean. It's the sky. It's the stars. But under this scenario, a computer program is now picking our elected officials. To put this another way, research now suggests that no matter how innocent or disinterested Google's employees may be, Google's search algorithm, propelled by user activity, has been determining the outcomes of close elections worldwide for years, with increasing impact every year because of increasing internet penetration. So search engine optimization, is powerful precisely because Google is so really very good at what it does. It's exemplary. Its search results are generally superb. Having learned that fact over time, we have come to trust those results to a high degree. We have also learned that higher rankings mean better material, which is why 50% of our clicks go to the first two items, with more than 90% of all clicks going to that precious first search page. Unfortunately, when it comes to elections, that extreme trust that we've developed makes us completely vulnerable to manipulation. So in the final days of a campaign, fortunes, millions upon millions of dollars are spent on media blitzes, advertising, television, newspapers directed at a handful of counties where swing voters will determine the winners in the all-important swing states like Ohio. Billions are spent on these elections, a complete waste of resources. Of course, they pay the bills at newspapers and at television studios, but the right person at Google could influence those key voters more than any stump speech ever could. There is no cheaper, no more effective, or more subtle or insidious and demonic way to turn swing voters than search engines. Search engine optimization has also one eerie advantage over billboards, TV advertising, whatever else. When people are unaware of a source of influence, they believe they weren't being influenced at all because they all believe they made up their own minds. So Republicans, take note. A manipulation on Hillary Clinton's behalf would be particularly easy for Google to carry out because of all the demographic groups we've looked at so far. No group has been more vulnerable to in other words, so blindly trusting of search rankings than moderate Republicans. In a national experiment that was conducted in the United States, they were able to shift a whopping 80% of moderate Republicans in any direction they chose, just by varying search rankings. So there's many ways to influence voters, more ways than ever these days. Once again, thanks to cable TV, mobile devices, the internet. Why is this program so powerful? How do so many people listen to Strange Universe Radio? Because I'm all over the world. I'm not on a terrestrial station. I come out of your iPad, your iPhone, your Google device, your I don't know, Samsung,
Devices.
Your Galaxy. I'm in your blood. My voice is being transmitted into the very marrow and atoms and quantum foam in which you spin. I'm inside you. So why would we be so afraid of Google's search engine? If rankings are so influential, won't all the candidates be using the latest SEO techniques to make sure that they rank high? Search engine optimization is competitive, as are billboards and TV commercials. No problem there. But the problem is that for all practical purposes, there's just one search engine. More than 75% of online search in the United States is conducted on Google. And in more other countries, and most other countries, that portion is 90%. And that means if Google's CEO, a rogue employee, or even just the search algorithm itself favors one candidate, then there's no way to counteract that influence. It would be as if Fox News were the only TV channel in the country. As internet penetration grows and more people get their information about candidates online, then will become an increasingly powerful form of influence, which means that the programmers and executives who control search engines will become more powerful. And worse still, the research shows that even when people do notice that they're seeing biased search rankings, their voting preferences still shift in the desired directions, even more than the preferences of people who are oblivious to the bias. And in a national study in the United States, 36% of people who were unaware of the rankings bias shifted towards the candidate that they chose for them. But 45% of those who were aware of the bias also chose for them. But 45% of those who were aware of the bias also shifted. So it's as if the bias was serving as a form of social proof. The search engine clearly prefers one candidate, so that candidate must be the best. Search results are supposed to be biased. After all, they're supposed to show us what's the best, what's the second best, and so on.
I told you. What have I told you? Well, I told you. I bloody told you. Anyway, yeah, welcome. It's me taking over the over the show. Captain Batman has left the Batmobile, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, wondering when he's going to come back. Anyway, he's disappeared to give people a talk and be clever in front of people. So here I am. I'm going to pretend to be clever, or maybe I'll try and be really dumb and ask people stupid questions so that they can give really good answers. Or maybe I could ask good answers. But I need someone to talk to because he did say he was going to leave me a story or two, but. While we're waiting, I want to talk about synchronicities. Have I told you lately how many synchronicities have been happening? And I'm not talking like on a really big level. I'm talking on a kind of almost like a micro level. For instance, I spend a lot of time listening to the radio and reading things at the same time. Thank you, Mona. So what happens is I'll be, I'm listening to the station in the background, and there's somebody talking because I listen. I'm producing talk radio, and there's a voice murmuring, and sometimes I'm just reading this thing, and a really significant word passes through my ears and across my eyes at precisely the same time. And I don't know how many people have noticed this, but this has been happening it used to happen maybe once every few days. But I'm seeing that this is happening like every few hours now at the moment for me. So this is This is an interesting thing. This is a phenomenon that does seem to be amping up and ramping up. And so what does that mean? Well, what does synchronicity mean? It's like a lineup. It's a bit like, when Mars and Jupiter and the Sun all line up and they have a particular energy form as they blend together. It's a combination of the time. Perhaps it's significant that the time is exactly the moment, there's a particular moment going on that comes across in video and audio, as it were. I'm not really sure. Call in and, talk about, has anybody else been getting this? I mean, I just spoke to my co-producer, Colleen, a few minutes ago, and precisely that happened. What was I saying? Oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about sleep and stuff, and I said overdrawn at the sleep bank, and she was reading her bank statement, and it was a moment, and these moments just keep happening more and more and more. So, if you want to call in about that, I run the world? No, you run the world. We all run the world. And this is part of it. My dear friend Nancy Hopkins has written a book called Cosmic Reality, which in it she lays down some ideas about the sort of cosmic laws or cosmic rules, and one of them is we are what we think we are. Reality is what you think it is. Sorry, I'm gonna have to quote you correctly. Freedom screen. Here's my Skype. Where was I? I've broken my train of thought. Synchronicities. So a synchronicity is it's almost like she says it's you doing it. And I'm saying that it's actually your soul or your higher self signaling to you that you're in the flow. What does Abraham call it? The vortex. Or, other words, you're on path, on track. So rather than having to check if you're, am I constantly on track? You just get synchronicities and things happen that are in a flow. And it's effortless. And for instance, here's another thing that keeps happening to me now is I'll randomly put my hand on something, then look down and realize that that's exactly what I needed to put my hand on next. But I hadn't thought into the next sequence, but my hand had already done it. It's a bit like your body dancing, and then you start hearing the music. And that's happened to me before, strangely enough. Right, okay, there's Zippy, the simultaneous occurrence of events that appear significantly related but have no discernible causal connection. So, the no discernible causal connection. Because what is discernible? What can you discern it? Can you discern spirit? Can you discern good timing? Who knows? Call in. Freedom screen. That's what happens. What's happened with Sean? Sean had a lecture he had to desert to. He bailed out. We knew. I know. It's a different vibe. It's like somebody there. No. So let's have a quick. So as I speak about synchronicity, here comes Mona. Hey Mona, how are you? Hang on.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. What's up?
I like the idea that we can meet ourselves in many different senses, but we always don't recognize it because we don't follow a discipline of allowing. So a lot of people probably miss those little blessings of synchronicities and showing us by all universal law that we are where we are supposed to be. Isn't that what it is when the synchronicity comes? It's a confirmation that everything's in divine right order.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're in the vortex, or you're on your path, or all those words, all these phrases that we use. You know, I am one with God. I'm right with God. God is on my side. All these things.
Which God?
Well, I like to say,
that.
everybody's got their own God, and if you try to impose it on somebody else, you're just going to end up in a fight, and somebody's going to die. And no God likes that, unless
take my lighter.
unless that God likes blood sacrifice, which some do, but that's not my God. Let me just tell you. Isn't it? But
that's sacrifice of many things. And the worst part is that it's Gaia's blood, too, and nobody's recognizing that either.
Well, we were talking the other day about petroleum and the idea that that's some sort of conscious fluid that is part of the planetary consciousness, and if you did burn this stuff and distill it and break it up and dismantle it, that perhaps it has some kind of deleterious effect on the planetary consciousness itself. When you burn it, what happens if you explode it? What if it hurts every time? What if it hurts every time a cylinder explodes in a car? Which is like something that happens millions of times a second all over the world. Billions. What if she's experienced pain because of that? I think we really need to work on gravity technology, myself.
Yes, I remember that. Free shelter, free food.
Yeah,
free
living
energy.
Is free.
Mm-hmm.
Living is free. Yeah, it's a meme. I've decided I'm going to inject some memes into reality. Hey, here comes Nighthawk to inject a meme.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, I'm bending over. Inject your meme, Nighthawk.
Oh my God! I gotta fix something.
We can barely hear you.
Yeah, you come closer to the mic. Come on.
What the hell happened to Sean? Where's Sean?
He said at the beginning of the show that he had a 7:30 talk. I mean, he was pretty cutting it fine. He's probably had to run to the room.
Okay, I missed that. I'm putting together a pizza, so.
JP put in chat exclamation points, call me, so I figured I better.
Cool. So Mona stepped up to, but it's interesting, because we're talking about synchronicities. Do you get synchronicities, Mike?
What?
Synchronicities. Like you're listening, here's the thing, you're hearing the feeds, right? And
I don't know. Do I get synchronicities? I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, no, maybe, I don't know.
Well, as an example, as I said, I'm listening to the feed and I'm reading stuff. Do you ever hear the same word that your eyes are just scanning at that moment when you're reading?
Occasionally, but right now I'm just trying to sort out this. Just go on. I'll be back in a minute. I gotta clean up a mess.
Okay. Okay. Could you mute Mike, please, or
yeah, we don't know what kind of mess it really might be, huh?
Yeah, it might be a very noisy mess.
Well, between animals and all that, because he does have a lively household.
He does live on a farm, and I live on a cow farm, which is very quite. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, as Zippy7592 has just put in the chat room, is Synchronicity 1111. I mean, how many people have seen 1111 on the clock? How many people see double figures? Yeah, just look down at the clock. It's 4. Right. It was exactly 4:44 in PST. Just and this screen is PST that I had, so I looked down at the clock. I see this all the time. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a good one.
Well, that's getting a little youngish, isn't it? Carl Jung.
I quite like Jung. As a young
I like him too. Mm-hmm.
I was a Freud of the dark. Hey, there you are, Mike.
I'm not sure. Am I back? Am I back and clean?
You're back and much cleaner. Yes, you had some compressing going on.
I've been rehearsing for the Black Sabbath show, and so I had to go turn off a whole bunch of stuff.
All right. Have you been hiddling and whittling and squiddling and biddling?
Not sure why that's meant, and not sure why Mona's laughing, but anyway.
Well, are those real words? And were you doing that? I could only envision. So that's why I was laughing.
Professional lead guitarists go hiddly biddly widdly squiddly, on their notes. Hiddly widdly widdly,
Oh, I didn't know that. Really cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the sound of the guitar. Anyway,
I'm the guitarist on this concert. I'm the vocalist.
All right, you do the.
I'm the Aussie. Aussie.
All right. So do you drive around in quad bikes?
I don't know what quad bikes are, but anyway, Liz made me. She made me a killer shirt. The first time she made it, it was like, okay, listen, Liz, we got to fix this shirt because it looks like I am completely surrounded by 47 colostomy bags. We got to fix this because I don't weigh this much anymore. So we got all that fixed.
She still had the old pattern, did she? Hasn't taken it in.
I don't
right
know.
Up with where?
I don't know what patented today, Beans, but anyway, we got all that fixed up and we're all set to go. I'm going to get off here because I can't understand. I'm having a hard time getting through accents here and stuff. So I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Okay. There goes the accent. Anyway, thanks very much, Mike. There's the boss coming in and checking on, making sure that the staff are still here, and that somebody's covered the place. Yeah.
Really?
Anyway, so it's not the day of the greatest popularity. There's been lots of attacks this week, and I'm really glad it's Friday. I really have to say, there's been one hell of a week, and it's I started off like 36 hours with a migraine that has just left me wibbling and squibbling. More words. I make my own words up, It's just, it's onomatopoeia. It's the sound of things,
Yes, you
It's
do.
the sound of the nature that I hear, And, that's where, like the Nung. I come up with names. I've had to name things a lot because, I used to run jam sessions and record them. And when we come up with a tune, I had to give it a name. So, sometimes it was the words that were said. Sometimes it was, the feeling that I was getting. And sometimes it was just something that might be happening in the studio, like falling onions when a bunch of onions fell off my table on the other side of the
You're
room.
raising the spirits, are you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, naming is a very interesting thing. Names are very interesting. So if anybody wants a new name, just call me up. I'll give you a new name.
There you go. He'll moan at you.
Monkey nipples. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Okay, then.
Meanwhile...
could you imagine somebody embroidering that on somebody's hat?
That's right. Or tattooing it. Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry. I was wrong. Yeah. It was gorilla nipples. Yeah. Well, anyway.
Oh, that's just too funny.
I will kill it.
All right. So I don't see any. The only thing that's really changed for this whole week is that the North Node's gone direct. So maybe you were looking to future things that you're going to be working on and you have to get accustomed to them.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. I tell you, I've come up with so many ideas, even just tonight. I was talking with a couple of builders friends and I said, right, okay, you get a data glove and you get your spraying machine and the glove's got GPS in it and switches in the hand and you just, and a laser in the finger. So you just point to the wall where you want it plastered. And you point to the corners with the laser, set this start here and finish there. And then it fills in the wall and you walk away. And it sprays plaster at the wall until the wall's completely plastered.
It sounds like Inspector Gadget kind of stuff. Did
It
you ever
really
see
is.
that movie?
No, but I get your idea. I get the idea. So, you fold
at
your fingers.
fingertip, right?
Yeah, you fold your fingers. If you fold your 3 fingers, it sprays and, there's water and air and, you can vary it with the way you, it's like playing a piano or playing a bagpipe or something like that. Anyway, that should be quite work. No, it's Freedom Screen. Well, single. Freedom Screen. Yeah, so this week I've also been, inventing things. I've been getting into this microelectronics. So if anybody wants to talk about microelectronics, I have a Thursday show that I do occasionally. So Anybody?
You ever talk to Tracy Kennedy about it? She's into all that Keshe stuff and things like that.
Oh no, this isn't like like the free energy devices. This is regular things. This is regular electronic things.
Right. Well, she does more than just that. I am sure she is so inventive. Tracy Kennedy is such a sweet lady. I love her.
Oh yeah, she's genius. And I've known Tracy for a very long time now. And essentially, the things I'm doing are like being able to have computers in a mesh that talk to each other about what's going on in the home. It's not really Big Brother because they're not like recording your voice, or they're just seeing that there's a placement movement and passing information. So if I'm moving down the corridor, it means I'm going to the kitchen. So it needs to prepare the kitchen and turn on the lights and turn on the audio and things like that. So
well, that would mean you'd have to be almost set up in a robotic way that you couldn't change your mind and go back into the other room without the computer being confused.
Oh no, it's fine because and they can cope with that. They can cope with me going, oh, hang on a second, let me just go and get my cup. I will program it to do so. It won't be inflexible. It will just follow me around. That's the idea. Is I just want light and sound to follow me around in my house.
Well,
doesn't ever.
I'm just going to laugh and say thank you all for the synchronicities of these things, because I was actually calling Hawkback instead of Studio A. So I want to thank you all for trying to hang out with us or do whatever else it was. And